doors. And so if you leave the door open, you can't say that this is a robbery, I guess.
A parliamentary report published in September 2025 recommended the ban of TikTok for teenagers younger than 15 years old. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. An update from the White House today on its efforts to crack down on fentanyl and the approaching deadline for the BBC to apologize for edits made in a documentary about the president. House lawmakers are back in D.C. after 2 months. They're expected to vote to reopen the government. Now the discussion is pivoting more to healthcare as Obamacare tax credits are set to expire in January. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says substantial tariff announcements are coming in the next couple of days. He also mentioned when Americans can expect to feel an overall difference in inflation. President Trump says the U.S. doesn't have people with certain talents to fill jobs domestically, but does relying on foreign talent drive down wages for American workers. A 3-judge panel today is hearing arguments over whether a federal law that blocks funding for abortions can remain active. A new task force launched to cut off crypto scams that the U.S. Attorney for D.C. says is backed by Chinese criminals.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for joining us today. House lawmakers are back in Washington after nearly 2 months. The chamber will vote on a measure to reopen the government after an overnight hearing. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
Overnight at 1:30 a.m., House lawmakers advanced the Senate-passed bill to reopen the government. It's very likely to easily pass the lower chamber, paving the way for a reopened government very soon.
I just want to apologize to any Americans who are out there who still have flight cancellations or delays today. I want to apologize to the many American families who were made to go hungry over the last several weeks, our troops and other federal employees who are wondering where their next paycheck would come from.
The full House will vote later today, but those who are far away could see flight delays due to the prolonged shutdown. One congressman from Wisconsin dodging the airport altogether.
Because they shut down the government, the Democrats, the flights are too unreliable. So I'm going to ride on a motorcycle. It's going to take about 16 hours or so. It's going to be a little chilly.
Speaker Johnson needs all Republican votes because Democrats are whipping against the measure.
What we've seen over the last several weeks is the Republican refusal to even extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans for a year.
The House Democrat leader last night in committee proposed a 3-year extension for Obamacare subsidies, which failed on a party line vote, making it crystal clear that Republicans will not extend the health care program without major reforms.
The cost of health care is entirely on the lap of the Democrats. This is Obamacare we're living under.
A group of bipartisan senators are now negotiating with the White House on how to reduce skyrocketing premiums. Dr. and Senator Roger Marshall is one involved in these negotiations. He put forth these ideas.
We're sending $150 billion a year to big insurance companies. Let's take that $150 billion. Let's give a part of that to consumers, to patients, and set up better HSAs for them. Give them more choices out there. Let's expand community health centers where people can get access to more primary care as well.
Now, Republicans could either try to strip out and reform the pieces of Obamacare that they see as not so great, or they could propose a totally new health care policy agenda, which looks more likely. That could tee up another showdown in the beginning of next year. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The Supreme Court has granted the Trump administration an extension on food stamp payments. The nation's high court has extended a temporary pause on a judge's order that would have forced the administration to fully fund food aid during the government shutdown. The decision keeps about $4 billion from reaching the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, for now. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented, voting in favor of resuming payments. The pause is now set to expire tomorrow night as Congress moves closer to ending the longest shutdown in U.S. history. The administration argued that the courts can't legally reallocate federal funds, and that only Congress can resolve the crisis by reopening the government. SNAP benefits have already lapsed for millions, forcing families to rely on food pantries as lawmakers work to end the shutdown. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is warning of travel chaos if Congress fails to end the shutdown by this weekend. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that. Plus, we hear from passengers caught in the travel breakdown.
The warning comes after one of the worst travel weekends since the shutdown began over 40 days ago, with more than 4,500 flights canceled. Thousands of air traffic controllers have been calling in sick, having gone weeks without pay, forcing airports to slow operations to maintain safety. Transport Secretary Sean Duffy says 6% of recent cancellations came from the FAA, speaking on Fox News.
And that's because the #1 job is to keep the airspace safe.
Duffy says if air traffic controllers get paid, the country will be well on the way to recovery.
But if they don't get paid, I made this point today, you're going to see airlines seriously consider grounding their aircraft. They're not going to fly if we get to Friday and the government's not open.
Airlines canceled 1,200 flights yesterday as air traffic control staffing improved significantly ahead of an expected end to a record-setting government shutdown as soon as today. On Monday, President Trump threatened to dock the pay of any controller who didn't return to work. The shutdown has forced 13,000 air traffic controllers and 50,000 TSA agents to work without pay. Martin Nguyen was traveling to Colorado Springs to visit the Garden of the Gods to get in touch with nature.
So while we were there, we received a text message telling us that our original flight returning back home was going to be postponed for a day after the original date.
Martin says it was a good thing he was staying with family, so he had a place to stay.
But yeah, definitely was not prepared for that. So we had to contact our work and everything to make sure that we were able to get that taken care of.
Traveler Mike Ricks says reopening the government is the right decision.
We have so many people that are dependent on government subsidies, other government programs.
Ricks says he's worried about returning home Friday evening.
And so we're keeping close tabs on our flight and making sure that's still on track. But yes, definitely worried about getting back home.
Over 5 million passengers have been affected by staffing-related delays or cancellations since the shutdown began on October 1st. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The bill moving through Congress to end the shutdown is under scrutiny. It includes a provision allowing 8 Republican senators to seek hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages over alleged privacy violations. Here's more.
The alleged incidents stem from the Biden administration's investigation of the January 6 Capitol breach. The clause would make it retroactively illegal in most cases to obtain a senator's phone records without notification. It would also let those affected sue the Justice Department for up to $500,000 per violation, plus legal fees. The Justice Department could choose to settle the claims rather than fight them in court. Democrats are criticizing the measure, saying it would hand large taxpayer-funded payouts to certain Republican lawmakers. The phone records in question were obtained under subpoenas issued during Special Counsel Jack Smith's probe into efforts challenging the 2020 election results.
Does the U.S. need health insurance reform? To discuss this, we're bringing in Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute and senior economics columnist for the Epoch Times. Jeffrey, always great to see you. So does the system that finances healthcare need reform in your view?
Desperately, and the Republicans have been given a golden opportunity by President Trump, who tweeted out that the government's money should go directly to taxpayers rather than insurance companies, which he called corrupt and overfunded. And that's exactly right. I mean, so this is a brilliant opportunity for them to entirely reform health insurance. What matters here is that, you know, even if the money goes, if government money goes not to health insurance companies but to individuals, they still face a very truncated marketplace where you can't just get catastrophic insurance. You have to buy into one of these predefined benefits packages, and the cost of this insurance is going through the roof. It's at $27,000 per person and set to rise much higher over the coming months and years. So what I'm suggesting here is that Trump is exactly right. The money should go to individuals instead of insurance companies, but the marketplace for insurance needs to be entirely opened up. So insurers need to be able to offer a menu of options to individuals, and that their premiums should be adjustable based on the risk of the individual's who are being insured, and that would do the most possible to reduce premiums under these emergency circumstances.
So, Jeffrey, a couple of things. Now, you say that we should rather have government funds go directly to citizens instead of insurers. How would this help? What's the impact of that? I mean, I would imagine insurers might not be too thrilled about this.
Oh, no, they'll be very unhappy about it, of course. But that's one of the biggest industries in the United States, and it's heavily subsidized by government, and there's no cost controls associated with healthcare now. The insurers are very much in charge of people's healthcare rather than their doctors. If we can just change the system so that we can restore that doctor-patient relationship, that would go a long way towards reducing costs. And a very beginning step of that is to give the money directly to individuals instead of to the insurers, and let the individuals shop for the best healthcare expenditures. The problem is that once they get out on the marketplace, they find that there's not really available a kind of a market base of options. I mean, just one, for example, everybody's being forced to pay for mental health coverage whether they want it or not. And that's just in these defined benefits packages, that's how this works. And the costs of them are going through the roof. People are paying for insurance they don't even use. And the deductibles are so high that once you start using it, then your costs are really going to increase. So this $27,000 figure I mentioned, that's before you use any of the actual health care. This is just to get you in the door. But once you start using the services from these exchanges, then they come after you for everything you're worth. And for a lot of people, their health insurance is higher than their rents or their mortgages at this point. So we've approached an emergency situation. Trump knows this. It's harming him politically and harming the Republicans politically. So my argument that I said in this Epoch Times article is that under these conditions, the Republicans need to act immediately to not only enact Trump's proposed reforms, giving the subsidies directly to individuals rather than to insurance companies. That will help reduce costs. But then after that, we still have many other substantial reforms to make that would change a lot of the logic of Obamacare. They called it the Affordable Care Act, but it's not affordable at all. It's completely unaffordable. There are ways to fix that, but it's going to mean getting into the wires of the system and pulling them out and replacing them with something much more market-oriented that restores the doctor-patient relationships.
So, Jeffrey, can you talk a little bit more on what needs to happen to eliminate some of the problems in the system? You mentioned a couple of them already. Maybe you can talk about a bit more.
Yeah, okay. So one of the issues is that when you get life insurance, the very first thing they do is they check, and they have the actuaries come in and check your risk, and your premiums are assessed based on your risk because the insurer wants to make money and you want to be insured. So that's how we have a competitive market for life insurance. The same thing is true in home insurance. If you're living on a floodplain, you're going to pay more than you would otherwise. And the same thing is true with auto insurance. If you get a lot of tickets, you're going to be paying higher premiums because insurance is necessarily related to risk. Now, incredibly, Obamacare changed that system in healthcare. So it doesn't matter how healthy you get. I could be tremendously obese and inactive and then lose a bunch of weight and join a gym and become a major athlete who's exercising every day. My premiums won't change at all, even though my risk profile has completely shifted. So we need insurers in the position of insuring not just these large pools of risk, but individuals. And that way, individuals will face an incentive to get healthy again. Right now, we've got this Make America Healthy Again movement, and everybody's telling you get healthy, but there's no financial benefit to you directly in terms of what you're paying for your health insurance. If you would benefit financially, so you realize, okay, being overweight is costing me $500 per month, you might rethink your diet and your exercise regime, because everybody wants to save money now. Getting healthy and saving money are the same thing under what I'm suggesting. This was the way the system worked in the past before Obamacare, but Obamacare came in and pooled all the risks of so many groups, and sure enough, over the last 15 years, Americans have gotten tremendously unhealthy as a result. And I think this is one of the reasons why. So if we could just restore something like a system where the actuaries assess individual risk, where individuals control their healthcare spending, and they can choose among a menu of options from all insurers, and ideally that the HSA system, health savings accounts, could be extended to everybody, regardless of their insurance status, so that people could save money tax-free, spend it on a range of healthcare options. That would all dramatically reduce the cost of healthcare in this country instantly. And what I'm saying is that the Republicans could and should pass such a comprehensive sweeping bill immediately while they have the majority, and that would dramatically reduce healthcare spending and increase the health of Americans.
So you were talking about this point as well, Jeffrey, in your article on the Epoch Times. I read it earlier today. You were saying that someone who smokes or drinks, they quit that, or they're overweight and they lose the weight. It has no impact on how much money they pay. So my question is, can health insurance become that granular?
Yeah, well, it used to be that granular. It's the same, again, it's granular for life insurance, granular for homeowners insurance, and it's granular for car insurance. Now, all those are all too high, but can you imagine if you had to share risk pools with 1 million other people, and that your great driving record wouldn't have any effect on reducing your premiums, or your health wouldn't change any of your premiums in your life insurance? That would be a completely crazy system, but that's exactly the system that we've implemented in healthcare. Now, the excuse they've given is that they don't want any discrimination for against pre-existing conditions, and that's a noble desire. But what it's done is it's taken out the market logic of all health insurance. There are surely ways that we can insure people who have pre-existing conditions while also rewarding people for getting healthy, for being healthy, so that they pay less insurance. This is really important. You know, people forget that your health is very much connected to, in many cases, in most cases, to your own life decisions. So we need the economics of the health insurance industry to match with people's own individual decision-making incentives to get healthy. That will, by itself, massively reduce the burden on the healthcare system and lower prices. And my suggestion is that we have to do this, like, right away, because right now, at the level of premiums that are being increased right now, the Republicans are approaching the political danger zone and being blamed for a system that they didn't set up. This is all Obamacare that did this. And it's up to them, up to the Republicans, to finally just get rid of all the guts and machinery of that entire system that has driven up healthcare insurance prices so high and healthcare prices so high. Then we've got a system that doesn't even have posted prices, and the insurers are running everything. The insurance companies are telling doctors what they can do without any posted prices for the consumer. This is making people very angry, and I think the Republicans could gain a great deal of popularity with their base and with the American people more broadly by finally doing something about it and bringing a market-based, actuarially driven system back to healthcare, just like we had it before, but better.
Okay, well, Jeffrey, that's our time today. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
An update from the White House today on its efforts to crack down on fentanyl and the approaching deadline for the BBC to apologize for edits made in a documentary. We have more after this break.
Shop the Design Studio by Mathis Home for Black Friday savings on luxury designer furniture. Get factory authorized savings on all the top brands with heirloom quality pieces for every room in your house. Choose from our incredible in-stock selection or let our complimentary design staff help you create a custom look to match your own personal style for less than you ever imagined. Get unmatched luxury at the lowest prices of the year through Black Friday weekend at the Design Studio by Mathis Home.
Hi, my name is Brady. When I was born, my parents thought everything was okay. My mom and dad were so excited to take me home.
I still get goosebumps telling this story. Several days in, his skin started to become very cold and clammy. We noticed that he had become blue around his mouth, and something was just very off.
We packed up as fast as we could. Brady stopped breathing twice on the way to the pediatrician. And that was one of the #1 things that just haunts me to this day.
I was born with a congenital heart defect called aortic coarctation. If my parents waited just 1 more hour to drive me to the hospital, I would not be here today. But thanks to research funded by the American Heart Association, I had heart surgery that saved my life. But not every kid is as lucky as me, which is why we need your help. Just call the number on the screen or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help. Get people trained in CPR. Get more hospitals certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. And help fund the next medical breakthroughs to help save kids like me.
When you donate to the American Heart Association, you're helping save lives like my son. And now, my son is happy and healthy thanks to the support of people like you.
When you call with your $19 a month, you'll get this really cool t-shirt as a thank you. Many children die from congenital heart defects. I can't wait to grow up to become a heart surgeon and fix babies' hearts, but until then, I'll keep helping the American Heart Association. So please join me. Just call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org to become a monthly donor and help save lives.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
FBI Director Kash Patel led today's White House press briefing with an update on the Trump administration's crackdown on fentanyl. Patel was in Beijing last week to address the topic.
We must attack fentanyl precursors, the ingredients necessary to make this lethal drug. That was the sole purpose of my trip to China, to eliminate these precursors. And if successful, we would suffocate the drug trafficking organization's ability to manufacture fentanyl in places like Mexico. This was the first time an FBI director has been to China in over a decade and received the audience with his counterpart to address this matter directly.
At the meeting, Patel said the leaders reached an agreement to cut off fentanyl into the U.S. Under President Trump, Patel said this year the FBI has seized nearly 2,000 kilograms of fentanyl so far. He said this is enough to kill 127 million Americans, and this is a 30% increase from the same period last year. Later in the briefing, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about a Friday deadline for the BBC to apologize for edits made in a documentary about Trump last year.
And I think that the president was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech that was so clearly fake news. And he rightfully dubbed that term many years ago. And this is a classic example of that. We see it in the United States all the time. We see it now in the United Kingdom. As you know, the president's external legal counsel has filed a lawsuit against the BBC. We expect that to continue. And whether they apologize or not is up to them.
Leavitt was also asked if this would strain the president's relationship with the prime minister since the BBC is publicly funded. He said Trump has always been very frank when he disagrees with leaders, even those he has a good relationship with. And President Trump says he has an obligation to sue the BBC. He made the comment during an interview on Fox News yesterday that aired. Take a listen.
They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up.
But tonight you are saying to our viewers that you will go forward and file a defamation lawsuit against the BBC.
Well, I think I have an obligation to do it because you can't allow people to do that.
The BBC has been plunged into its biggest crisis in decades after its two most senior staff, Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turness, quit over the weekend. That follows criticism over accusations of bias at the BBC, including over how it edited the speech by President Trump. The broadcaster spliced together two parts of a January 6, 2021 speech that occurred nearly an hour apart. The end result made it appear like Trump directed his supporters to breach the U.S. Capitol. President Trump has threatened to sue the BBC for at least $1 billion. BBC Chair Samir Shah has apologized for editing the footage. A spokesperson said the broadcaster is reviewing the letter sent by Trump's legal team. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says substantial tariff announcements are on the way. He specified that coffee and bananas. Here's President, or actually Bessent, speaking on Fox News.
The president says, I'm going to lower the rates, tariff rates on Brazil and Vietnam and other places to try to bring the price of coffee down. What else are you doing?
Well, it's tough to do a lot of specific things, but I can tell you, Brian, you're going to see some substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States. You know, coffee being one of them, bananas, other fruits, things like that. So that will bring the prices down very quickly.
Bessent said on Fox News that the administration will cut tariffs on many things not grown in the U.S. President Trump also mentioned earlier on Fox News that tariffs would come down on coffee. A drop in banana prices would also be noticeable. CNBC reported that they have long been seen as inflation-proof, but consumers have witnessed a surprising recent rise in price. Bessent also said Americans would start feeling better about inflation in the first or second quarter of 2026. Brazil is the #1 source of coffee in the U.S. President Trump and Brazilian President Lula spoke in October. Trump mentioned then that he thinks the U.S. and Brazil will make a new trade deal. A scam center strike force has been launched to target crypto fraudsters who the U.S. Attorney for D.C. said are backed by Chinese organized crime. Here's Janine Pirro.
The consequences of these scams are devastating. Older Americans in particular are targets of these scams, many of them lonely, many of them looking to speak to someone who communicates with them, their entire life savings gone, their retirement funds gone, left with no opportunity to go back into the workforce and to re-earn money.
Pirro said experts estimate that last year alone, Americans were scammed out of more than $9 billion from crypto fraud. And that's based on underreported numbers. She explained how the fraud usually works. A scammer will reach out through text or social media, gain the person's confidence, and convince them to invest. Pirro said that's why they have launched a scam center strike force to take down and recover stolen funds. She said they have the authority to charge foreign defendants and seize foreign property. So far, Pirro said they have seized more than $400 million. Additional actions are underway as well to lead the forfeit of $80 million more. A federal appeals panel is hearing arguments this afternoon about whether a spending law passed in July that ended Medicaid reimbursements for Planned Parenthood can remain in effect while legal challenges continue. NTD's Arlene Richards has the details.
A three-judge panel of the First Circuit Court of Appeals is hearing arguments on Wednesday to consider whether to temporarily block a federal law which ended Medicaid reimbursements to health centers that provide abortion. Planned Parenthood is suing Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy and others with claims that the new law, which became active in September, violates the Equal Protection Clause of the First Amendment. They claim their clinics provide low-income populations access to care, and the provision could force them to shut down or reduce their service offerings. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed into law in July includes a provision that bars federal funds from being used to provide abortion. Healthcare nonprofits like Planned Parenthood that received more than $800,000 in federal funding in 2023 are prohibited from receiving Medicaid reimbursements for 1 year. An appeals court judge in August granted the government's request to stay a lower court's preliminary injunction that had blocked the law until after court proceedings were completed. That judge did not hear oral arguments. On Wednesday, a panel is hearing the arguments and is considering reactivating the lower court's injunction. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
President Trump says the U.S. doesn't have people with certain talents to fill jobs domestically, but does relying on foreign talents drive down wages for American workers? We discuss this after the break.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says President Trump's plan for visas is to temporarily bring in expert overseas workers to train Americans. Then they go home and the U.S. workers fully take over. Joining us to discuss is Daniel DiMartino, Manhattan Institute Fellow and founder of the Dissident Project. So Daniel, good afternoon to you. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Daniel, before we get your thoughts, I just wanted to play this clip of President Trump saying the U.S. doesn't have people with certain talents to fill jobs domestically. Take a look.
You don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well,
when you and I were
I'll give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it.
Now, Daniel, I understand you're mostly in favor of continuing the H-1B visa program. So could you explain for us why you believe the U.S. needs foreign talent?
Well, I think smart people are a good thing for any society, really. And in the case of the United States, the H-1B visa program, even though it's a flawed program that does need some reform, it is the only, relevant high-skilled visa channel for a lot of young, intelligent people coming out of American colleges or that U.S. companies want to bring in order to start a startup, especially in the tech sector, especially even doctors in hospitals, researchers. So that is why, and I think President Trump is exactly right, that America benefits from this. It's not that America needs anything. America doesn't need anything. The question is what's beneficial for American workers. And it is beneficial to bring in people who speak English, who are going to earn high pay, and who are not going to commit crime. That is the ideal type of immigrant.
So, Daniel, you're very much an expert in this topic. So could you address a few of the criticisms of the visa program? So one of them is, does it or does it not take job opportunities away from Americans?
Yeah, so when we think about the impact of immigration in the labor market, when you bring in people from another country, not only does the number of jobs grow, but also the number of opportunities for American workers. This is a great example. When you bring in foreign doctors, we're not saying that we're going to steal the jobs of American doctors. We have a huge doctor shortage. There are hundreds of counties in this country that don't have a primary care physician. So you're actually saving lives by bringing in foreign talent or allowing companies to do it. You encourage them to set up shop here, like President Trump mentioned, a South Korean company that makes batteries. If they're not allowed to bring foreign talent, they just open in Canada, they open in China, they open in another country. And then not only do they bring their foreign talent, but they hire their supporting workforce from that nation there. Right? When you open a battery factory here that needs, say, 10% of workers that are foreign, you also bring in the 90% of workers that are American that are now able to work thanks to that partnership.
So, Daniel, if we're bringing in foreign workers, sometimes they get paid less. Does it or does it not drive down wages for domestic workers?
Well, I think let's set the facts straight here. The median H-1B visa holder makes $120,000 a year. That is not a low-wage job. Now, could it be higher? Yes. The current problem is that there is much more demand for this visa than number of visas available. Only 85,000 for-profit companies a year. And so the U.S. government, unfortunately, awards them to the hundreds of thousands of companies that want them by lottery. And this is what allows the abuse. So what we need to do in this case is simply say, we're going to award them to the 85,000 highest paid spots, which would actually make the minimum salary around 120,000 and the average salary at over 200,000.
Just a few more, if you could address, could there be national security concerns? Relying on foreign talent, could it discourage Americans from pursuing high-skilled careers?
Well, I actually see it as a national security gain that the United States is stealing the intelligent people from other countries. What is the most effective strategy to ensure that America stays at the top of the world? Brain drain our enemies and even our other countries that are not our enemies, right? Because that prevents them from ever being able to overcome us technologically in many other ways. So that is a loss for China, a loss for India, a loss for other countries, and a win for America. And on the, a lot of people talk about espionage, things like that. Look, the reality is that countries that want to spy on the United States, they can bring in people through marriage, they can bring in people fraudulently, they can bribe American citizens, which they do often. This visa program actually is something that China opposes because they're worried that many of their young, highly intelligent people will come to America through it.
So you mentioned China, right? So let's talk about that. It's obvious that the U.S. wants to remain the world's superpower, right? And it's currently in competition with China. So would you say could abolishing or downsizing the H-1B visa program negatively impact the U.S. in this context?
Absolutely. You know, China has a program called the 1,000 Talents Program, in which they pay their graduate students abroad over $100,000 to come back to China and work. They don't want Chinese immigrants who are college educated to leave China. They want them to go back. And so America doesn't need to pay them. America just needs to let them stay. And the sad reality is that even though the H-1B program is flawed, it is the only way for most of these people to stay after they complete their studies here. So yes, vet people like Trump is doing. He's even vetting their social media when they're coming here. That is a great thing. But if they're not a communist and they're not a spy and they're intelligent, those are people who should be welcomed.
So Daniel, you mentioned a couple of times that there may be problems with this program. You know, there have been reports that some companies have been abusing this, paying workers less, and then, you know, not actually using this program to fill talent, but to use it to cut costs for their own company. So what are some solutions that you see that could, you know, reform or make this program better?
Well, the one solution that I think has a very much bipartisan support is that you need to stop awarding the visas on a random lottery, but instead give them to the highest paid applicants, no matter their profession. If they're all in healthcare, their own technology, the point is that they have to be the highest paid professional. You kind of have a $60,000 a year interior designer preferred over a $200,000 a year coder, right? You need to go by economic value. And then after that, you do that, companies are going to be able to bring in people without the fraud that is happening now. What is happening now is that a lot of companies are bringing in jobs that, you know, are middle wage jobs, not low wage, but certainly middle wage. And that is really a waste of opportunity for America because there's only 85,000 visa spots. You would rather bring in people who are more highly paid. Look, my own research finds that even on the status quo, the average H-1B visa holder will reduce America's national debt by over $2 million over 30 years because these are immigrants who pay a lot in taxes because they're highly paid and because they don't receive any welfare. So this is a really big win for America. And that's why President Trump, I'm happy to hear that he supports it.
So since we're on the topic of potential solutions, how do you view the new $100,000 fee imposed on the H-1B visa?
Well, the issue with the $100,000 fee is that it's not really binding or very effective at achieving what it wants to do. Neither is the proposed rule for wage selection that the Trump administration drafted. And let me explain this shortly. What happens with the $100,000 fee is that it can be really easily evaded by the bad actors, which are these Indian third-party placement companies that bring in people, will now do so through a internal transfer visa called the L1 and then change them to H-1B. And so the problem with those firms is that they're not actually allowing people to hire workers, but they're just hiring them and then placing them temporarily in lower wage positions in different other companies. They're third-party placers. And then the issue with the rule that the Department of Labor is proposing is that it's prioritizing petitions based on their wage on their occupation. So you're prioritizing, say, a $60,000 a year interior designer over the case I mentioned, a $200,000 a year coder, because a $60,000 wage for interior designers is more impressive than $200K among coders. This doesn't make any sense. We prefer a $200,000 a year offer over a lower one. And so we need pure wage selection. We don't need these occupational adjustments because then these unethical firms will simply change the name of the occupation to get better odds of getting the visa.
All right, Daniel, you've been very clear in your explanation of the H-1B visa program. I just have one last question for you to end this interview. More broadly speaking, what would be the impact, whether it's economic or anything else, of just simply ending the H-1B visa program?
Well, I estimated this exact question, so I'm glad you asked. You know, in my new paper that came out with the Manhattan Institute, if we eliminated the H-1B visa program, America would lose approximately well over $1 trillion over 30 years in net tax revenue and minus spending. So we would be in debt $1 trillion more over 30 years, or GDP would go down by a couple percentage points. And people might say, well, America isn't just GDP. You're right. America isn't just GDP. America is a nation. America is the home of its citizens, but Americans eat what they earn, and we should not be lightly saying that we do not care about GDP or the national debt, because that is the reason driving young people to vote for socialism. That is the reason driving Americans out of home ownership, out of so many things. We want policies that prioritize the well-being, the economic well-being of American workers, and the H-1B visa does just that.
Well, all right, Daniel, terrific insight today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth addressed the Defense Summit in Fort Wayne, Indiana today. The annual event brings together top U.S. national security officials, industry experts, and business leaders, and state and local officials. Hegseth talked about this time as the secretary so far, saying President Trump gave him a 10-point plan before entering the role. Here's Hegseth.
Bring the warrior spirit back to the military. We need the warrior spirit back. And that has been our guidepost, as the senator mentioned from the beginning. I mean, I could lay out the 10 points, and it's been America first, peace through strength, common sense, revive the warrior ethos, rebuild the military, reestablish deterrence. We're going to defend the homeland. We're going to deter China. We're going to make sure our allies do their part in burden sharing, and we're going to revive the defense industrial base. That's 10 points, general overview of what the president prescribed us to do, what the Department of War has been focused on, and the urgent threats that we need to orient on.
Hegseth says the department has been successfully focusing on those points since Trump returned to office. He added that the department is emphasizing those efforts instead of nation building in foreign countries. According to Hegseth, following those guidelines will bring back what he calls the golden age of America. Now over to France, where a court has opened a criminal probe into TikTok after allegations that its algorithm pushed minors towards suicide. The case follows multiple family lawsuits and a damning parliamentary report calling the app a dangerous algorithm. NTD's international correspondent David Vez reports from Paris.
France's justice system has opened a preliminary investigation into social media giant TikTok, following concerns that its algorithm could push minors towards suicide. These follow recent cases of teenagers who committed suicide across the country, and a lawsuit filed by 7 families accusing TikTok of exposing their children to content that encouraged self-harm. The Commission heard from over 170 experts and received 30,000 testimonies from the public. One teenager testified before lawmakers. "At first I saw videos about art and music, but soon everything turned darker. I fell into a harmful loop." Investigators are now examining several potential offenses, including the promotion of methods for taking one's own life. A TikTok spokesperson told Reuters that the Chinese company categorically rejects what it calls the Commission's misleading presentation. French lawmakers have been scrutinizing TikTok for years. In 2023, former Senator André Gattolin contributed to a report on the platform. He says there are signs that the Chinese Communist Party may use TikTok as a tool in its warfare operations.
Generally speaking, social networks like Facebook and others become profitable fairly quickly, turning a profit after 4, 5, or 6 years. TikTok, through Binance, has been around for many years, and they have more expenses than they have resources. They don't sell personal data, and for good reason. They don't market it because the destination is the Chinese regime, the Chinese Communist Party, which means filing as many people as possible. So the driving idea behind TikTok is not that TikTok should become a leader in its sector according to the accepted rules of international trade or capitalism, so to speak. The idea is to introduce a quasi-military offensive dimension, which could be described as hybrid warfare, in order to truly undermine the integrity and unity of a nation.
In July, TikTok was fined $615 million by an EU agency after an Irish court found that users' data was accessible from China and insufficiently protected. Gattolin says this mass data collection effectively weaponizes TikTok against its users.
We know there's a massive collection of data. It's a way of gaining control over the future of our societies, and that's extremely serious. TikTok said that there is no data transfer, but we have seen in investigations that there were Chinese computer scientists from ByteDance who broke into the app and then transferred data and stole it. You know, all these systems are called backdoors, and so if you leave the door open, you can't say that this is a robbery, I guess.
A parliamentary report published in September 2025 recommended the ban of TikTok for teenagers younger than 15 years old. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Now, a TikTok spokesperson told Reuters that the company invests heavily in age-appropriate experiences for teens, and the company said that it has over 50 preset features to support teen well-being and removes 9 out of 10 videos that violates its rules before anyone sees them. Taking a break now, relief from tariffs could be on the way, from tariff rebate checks to newborn bank accounts. The Treasury Secretary explained some of the administration's efforts in an interview this morning.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I am living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're going to benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Americans should be seeing substantial relief from tariffs soon. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke about some efforts today on Fox News.
And then the other thing you're going to see in the middle of the year are these Trump accounts. Every child born retroactively to January 1, but for the next 3 years, is going to get a $1,000 account that's going to be invested in the U.S. stock market. So that's another $1,000 for working families.
Bessent also addressed the president's suggestion of $2,000 rebates for families. Bessent confirmed this is in discussion and said it would likely be for families making less than $100,000 a year. But he noted nothing has been decided yet. The Treasury Secretary also said they're working to bring down costs overall. He said the administration is moving toward cutting duties on a number of produce items we don't grow in the U.S., pointing to coffee, bananas, and other fruit. Besson said that he expects Americans to start feeling better about inflation in the first or second quarter of next year. The penny is suffering the same fate as the dodo bird or the 8-track player. After 238 years, the U.S. is minting its last 1-cent coin.
The cost savings of ending penny production will save the American taxpayer approximately $56 million a year in just production cost alone. Although today we say goodbye to the continued production of our copper 1-cent coin, let me be crystal clear. The penny remains legal tender. We have over 300 billion pennies that remain in circulation, and we encourage you to use them.
Earlier this year, President Trump announced that he ordered the nation to stop making the penny, saying that each one costs nearly 4 cents to create. Other coins, including the nickel, dime, and quarter, will remain in circulation. Although the penny already seems obsolete to some consumers, its removal is causing problems for some merchants who will now have to round prices either up or down. And dropping the penny will create a greater need for nickels, which are a more expensive coin to mint. Now a look at the weather. The first taste of winter is here. A powerful blast of Arctic air plunged much of the country into a deep freeze this week. Here's a closer look at some early winter weather.
From Alabama to Florida and Georgia, nearly 18 million people spent the first half of the week under a freeze warning, a shock to many after temperatures just days ago were in the 70s and 80s. In Jacksonville, Florida, a low of 28 degrees broke the city's previous daily record for November 11th, set back in 1977. The cold was so extreme that Florida even issued what's jokingly called a falling iguana advisory. The forecaster with the National Weather Service explained that when temperatures dip below 40, iguanas begin to fall from trees. Posts of stunned reptiles appeared across social media as Floridians bundled up in coats, a rare sight even for November. Meanwhile, across the Great Lakes and Northeast, heavy lake-effect snow brought hazardous driving in whiteout conditions. Some towns in Michigan and New York were buried under nearly half a foot of snow earlier this week, with wind chills well below freezing. Communities like Buffalo, Syracuse, and Niagara Falls woke up Tuesday under winter weather advisories, with forecasters predicting up to 6 inches of accumulation. In the Midwest, Indiana recorded its first measurable snowfall this season on Monday, causing more than 100 accidents in just one day. And in California, forecasters are tracking an atmospheric river expected to bring heavy rain and mountain snow later this week. The long plume of tropical moisture that formed over the Pacific Ocean will begin drenching the San Francisco Bay Area starting today, before quickly moving south. And in parts of the south, the frigid air created something beautiful, so-called frost flowers. Thin layers of ice emerged from stems of local plants in Kentucky and Arkansas. The current cold snap won't last too long. Forecasters say much of the U.S. will warm up by the second half of the week. Moving up north to Quebec, hundreds of thousands were without power yesterday after the province's first major snowstorm of the season over the weekend. Montreal's weather agency recorded nearly 8 inches of snow.
California is taking back over 17,000 driver's licenses that don't meet federal rules. Find out more about that after this break.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Don't wait. Call now to find out about our Medicare plan.
Why do we have to sit through so many Medicare commercials this time of year? It's endless.
Good question, Edith. I'm glad you asked. We see so many commercials this time of year because it's the only time, other than special circumstances, when Medicare recipients can change their plan for Part C. Original Medicare only covers Parts A and B, but a Medicare Advantage plan has additional benefits that Original Medicare doesn't offer.
So now's the time to fill those spaces?
That's right, Archie. And every year, there are changes to what benefits you may receive from your Part C plan. Call right now to find out what plan best suits your needs.
It's easy, easy, don't delay. Pick up the phone and call today.
Call now for your free Medicare review.
1-833-469-1754. 1-833-469-1754.
You may now return to your regularly scheduled programming.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
Silver is the precious metal of the future. Judge Napolitano here. Since 2020, the silver price has risen as much as 190%. Why? In each of the last 4 years, rising demand for solar and electric vehicles alone has put silver supply